When I was in my 20s, I was terribly unhealthy. I did not I didn't know much of anything. I didn't know I knew how I was raised and what foods we ate when I was raised, what we fed our animals as I was being raised, which we didn't have a ton of animals until I got older, but I was terribly, terribly unhealthy in my 20s. I had probably 6 to 8 migraines a month. I had serious sinus problems. I was at the doctor's way more often than I ever wanted to be for antibiotics for sinus infections and, prescriptions for Imitrex for migraines, and I I wish I could go back and change that, but I can't, and it just is what it is, but I learned a lot, and one of the things that I've talked about a couple of times, a number of years ago, I read a book called, The Carnivore Code, I believe it was. It's been so long. Dr. Paul Saldino wrote it, and we well, I actually just went and I read that book and I was so inspired that I put myself on a carnivore, an animal-based diet. And what an animal-based diet is and we're going to talk about pets, I promise, but bear with me. What an animal-based diet is, it's animal products, so a lot of meat. He does want you to eat liver as well. It's a multivitamin. It's super nutrient dense. I could not make myself eat liver. I'm still trying to become that person that can eat liver. It is still on my radar. I still want to do it. But I opted for sadly very expensive beef organ supplements to get those nutrients, and I'm still taking them, and they are very expensive, so I promise you, I am trying to be that person that eats liver. But anyway, it's animal products, it is fruit, which you would be surprised how many plants that we call vegetables are actually fruit. So fruit and then, dairy, raw dairy, and some honey or maple syrup. I'm not a maple syrup person. Shocker. This might be the reason that you hate me if you love maple syrup. Sorry, I don't love maple syrup. It's just not my thing. Maybe I haven't had the good maple syrup, I don't know. If you know of an incredible maple syrup out there and you're like, "No, you just haven't had the right one," tell me about it or send it to me, and I'll try it, but honey, I absolutely love honey. So, I switched my diet to a carnivore diet for a period of time, and I felt better than I have ever felt in my entire life, so much so that I am even with all of the crazy things going on in my life and how my life has been upended, and I am on that journey to try to get back to a carnivore diet. I don't have great kitchen access at the moment, but I am trying to get myself back to a carnivore diet because I don't currently, this is an admission that I hate to make, but I don't currently feel amazing in my body, and I want to get back to that place where and I remember how I felt, and one of the things that happened when I went on that carnivore diet is that I had absolutely no seed oils, none whatsoever, and that's huge, like, that's it for the average person, you would think that's impossible in the society we live in, and I will admit, it is not super easy, but for us and for our pets, I truly believe that we need to reduce as much as possible the seed oils in our lives, if not completely eliminate. Some of us may need to completely eliminate. Some of us may be able to tolerate some, but even if we do, they should be cold pressed and hexane free. We'll talk about that a little bit more in today's episode. So, it is I don't know which side of social media you are on today because there is definitely a side of social media that says stop eating seed oils, and there is another side of social media saying that this is all fear mongering and they're totally fine for you. Now, we can go back, and again, we talk about this in today's episode. we can go back to where this all originated and how those studies, I am using my quote fingers, my air quote fingers, um, were intentionally created to spin a certain narrative, which was to say that seed oils are actually heart healthy. They are not. There is a lot of data. There is a huge amount of studies. There is a huge amount of data showing that they are not good for us. They are not heart healthy. They are not good for our pets either. These I don't want to get too much into it because, again, we do talk about it in today's episode. But what I want to remind you is that the Pet Parenting Reset is about how to help your animals naturally. That includes looking at what's in the bowl and what's in our own bodies, because I find if we can do it for ourselves, we can do it for our pets that much easier. So, a lot of what we talk about is applicable to both us and our pets, and this is one of those topics. So, seed oils actually show up in not only ultra processed human foods, but they actually show up in many commercial pet foods and treats. This is why this topic is important, because we all need to remember with everything we pick up in a store that we turn it over, we read the ingredient label. No matter what anybody tells us that we don't need to do that, we absolutely need to do that. So, what we bring into the home affects everyone under the roof of that home: humans, dogs, cats, everyone. We all share a microbiome. I talked about this years ago. There was a study that came out that showed that everyone in the household shares a microbiome. So, what we do to ourselves, what we do for our pets, all of it matters. I don't just want you to get your pets healthy. I want you to get you healthy as well, just like I'm trying to get myself healthy again. I've been through a really tough time in life. I admit that. And I am on the road to being healthy again. I am there. I am working towards it, and I hope you are too. So today we are talking to Cherie Calbom, and she is an author. She has published multiple books on the benefits of coconut oil, and most recently, the detriment of seed oils. And it is called The Truth About Seed Oils. And so when she reached out to me, I initially was like, I'm not sure. Yes, I would love to talk to you because I believe in this, but how do I make it fit? And then I remembered that we're talking about everyone in our household. We're talking about all of us sharing a microbiome, that what we do for ourselves affects our pets. So we're talking about us today. We're also talking about our pets. And I just see this as such an important topic because it is yet another way in which science was intentionally misrepresented to create a belief, a popular belief that I wish would go away because it is that detrimental to us. It's detrimental to our physical health, to our emotional health, to our brain health. Alzheimer's and dementia are on the rise. CCD in dogs is on the rise. And yes, we've talked about how mushrooms can help. Reducing the ratio of omega 6s to omega 3s is also going to help. So, with that in mind, I will go ahead and introduce you to today's guest, Cherie Calbom. Again, she is the author of The Truth About Seed Oils. I hope you check out the book, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Cherie. Real quick before we get into it, most of you listening haven't hit follow yet, and I want to make you a deal. Hit follow on this podcast, and I'll keep doing the unglamorous work of dragging holistic pet health out of Facebook group folklore and into something backed by actual science. That's the whole deal. Hit follow, and let's keep rewilding together. Okay, back to it. For your book, which I'm super excited for you to have this book come out, I think we need some clarification, especially with, everything that's on social media these days about what seed oils actually are and how they truly affect our health. And
Mhm.
for me, I also look at how they affect, our pet's health.
Yeah,
So, Sherry, I first of all, thank you so much for being here.
thank you.
Um, I would love to start out if you could just tell people what seed oils are, and we can kind of start from that foundation.
Yes, absolutely. So they are canola, which is rapeseed, soy, corn, safflower, sunflower, grapeseed oil, rice bran, cottonseed, um, peanut oil. Those are the seed oils. And they're made from seeds, but they've been called vegetable oils for a long time, which really confuses people. There are no vegetables in there, but it was a nice marketing term to get people on board. Who doesn't want more vegetables, right? But these are the ones that are toxic, and they probably would not be toxic if they were cold pressed and treated well. But they're industrial seed oils, and they're highly abused and processed, and that creates a lot of toxicity. So I can just go through the processing for a moment. They use very high heat, up to 500 degrees for these big vats of seeds, and I call it a slurry. So they're mashing them and heating them to a very high temperature. And these are fragile polyunsaturated fatty acids, which means there are more than two or more sets of double bonds, and that means they can be broken easily and create free radicals. And then they pour in hexane, which is a very toxic chemical, and other chemicals to deodorize, neutralize, and bleach the oil. So by the time it rolls out to us in usually a plastic bottle, think microplastics when you have plastic bottles, we have a very, very toxic product that creates a lot of oxidative stress in the body, which leads to inflammation, and inflammation leads to every disease you could name.
That's I mean, you condensed it very well. But it is, there's there are people on social media trying to say that we're blowing this out of proportion. There are other people on social media who are like, "No, we are absolutely not blowing this out of proportion." My understanding was that this was initially, the, rapeseed oil was machine lubricant made in Canada for, I think it was the Second World War, and when the war was over, they had all of this product that they were making. It was, like, a huge part of the industry of the country of Canada, and they just decided, "Well, if that's what you know how to make, if that's where all of your resources have been, we want you to keep making it," and they just kinda put some scientists in the lab to figure out how to get it into the food supply instead of using it as machine lubricant, which sound
Oh,
you just
yeah.
gave us, like, an excellent understanding of how they do that with, bleaching it and taking the smell out of it and just trying to make it more
Mhm.
appealing to people. Um,
Yes. Well, it came about actually for machine lubricant way back in the turn of the century before last, the
oh,
late
okay.
1800s. So, yeah, it's been machine lubricant for a long time, but isn't that amazing? But then it was cotton seeds. So the big crops of cotton produced a lot of seeds that were mounding up and rotting, and they wanted to know what to do with that. So they created oil that was dark and smelly, and it was a machine lubricant. And that carried us into World War II. And interesting that rapeseed from Canada came along too as a lubricant. But even before the war, they had, with the cottonseed, refined and deodorized and bleached and made a cooking oil. And it was a very small market in the 20s and 30s. But then the war came, and the coconut oil, which was very popular in America, couldn't make it. The tropical oils couldn't make it through the waters because of the war. And so they stepped up production for the seed oils. in particular, like corn and soy and cottonseed oil, and rolled that out as vegetable oil. And here's the oil for the modern cook. You want this oil. It's very shelf stable. You don't have to refrigerate it. And that flooded the market. And after the war, something else showed up: heart disease, heart attacks, and they wanted to know why. So they did autopsies and found plaque and cholesterol and fat in the plaque and blamed that. And the common sense voices that said, wait a minute, we've eaten butter and eggs and all of these foods for, centuries, and those people were drowned out. And they promoted the seed oils as heart healthy, even though they were the cause of the lesions in the arteries that where the plaque was building up over those lesions. They blamed the fat and cholesterol, and the new lipid hypothesis was born thanks to Ansel Keys, the top physicist. And uh, uh, then everything that was saturated, including coconut oil, which was a great oil for our health, and all animal fats were demonized, and the oils were pushed out there to be heart healthy. And did they change the heart situation? No. It got worse and worse, and still the number one killer in America.
It is. So what before we go any further, because I have more questions about this, but before we go any further, Cherie, would you mind just telling people where you're getting all this information from? How you've spent quite a bit of time researching all of this. Can you just give me a little bit of background as to why you decided to research all of this and what you've done professionally with this information?
Yes. So I started researching fats and oils, and particularly coconut oil, back in the early 2000s when a few people were talking about the health benefits of coconut oil, and everybody else almost in the world blamed coconut oil and said it, was responsible along with animal fats for the increase in cardiovascular disease. But a few voices were saying, wait a minute, that is wrong. And here's some supporting evidence. So I started looking at the research then. And one of the professors, Dr. Mary Enig, wrote a book, Fats and Oils. She had some really fantastic information in there. And then there were some scientific papers. I looked at all of that and was convinced that coconut oil is very healthy and that the saturated fats in coconut oil are good for us. And so my first book on coconut oil and other fats and oils came out in early 2000s, The Coconut Diet. And it became a bestseller. It was popular, and people were very interested in why coconut oil is considered a slimming oil. And people were losing weight, including coconut oil in their diet. Well, it's rich in MCTs, medium chain triglycerides, which the liver likes to burn. So I have looked at fats and oils ever since. But when this new wave of no seed oil movement hit a couple of years ago and became very popular in social media, I decided to delve into it more. And that's when I got involved in looking at the history of fats and oils, the history of seed oils, which I really hadn't looked into as much before. And then the research on cholesterol, fats and oils, seed oils, and became convinced that these oils are very toxic, very bad for our health. Chapter 2 of our book, The Truth About Seed Oils, lists all of the different studies, the scientific studies that link seed oils to a variety of conditions, not only cardiovascular disease, but cancer, diabetes, metabolic issues, skin issues like acne and eczema and psoriasis, brain issues like Alzheimer's and dementia, emotional problems like depression and anxiety and even aggression. Scientific studies linking seed oils to all of those conditions. And so I realized too that not only did people need some proof and some evidence, not just, the social media kinds of quick reels and 1 minute bites, sound bites, but they needed some true scientific evidence, but also some practicality. So I have over 50 recipes in my book, um, and shopping guides, smoke point charts, um, and lots of practical tips on the oils and fats and which ones to choose for their flavor and their smoke point to go with which types of cooking you would want to do.
Well, I love coconut oil. I just wanna, like, as an aside to this seed oil topic, I absolutely love coconut. I use it for everything I can possibly think of. I was actually just joking with my sister-in-law last night that, like, anything that goes wrong, my first thing is always to say is always like, "Well, let's put some coconut oil on it." Like, let's do I use
Yes.
it I use it internally, I use it for myself, I use it o for oil pulling, I use it topically, I use it in place of lotion a lot of times because a lot of the lotions that we get are just chemical ridden and toxic. I
Mm,
use it on my dog. If I find a flea on her, I rub her
okay.
down with coconut oil. It's really super versatile and incredibly healthy for us. I've had this conversation about saturated fats with another guest, Billy Hookman, who is the vice president of nutrition for Green Juju, and kind of talking about, exactly what you just said, where we had this like break in the medical information that was being disseminated to the US population and which spread across the world,
Ugh,
where they were telling us that, animal fats and healthy plant fats like coconut oil are detrimental for us. They really reduced the recommended amount of saturated fats in our diet, and our brain cells are made of saturated fats. So, of course, that's when we started seeing huge spikes in things like Alzheimer's and dementia. And I think a lot of that is true for our animals as well. Like their brain is made up of the same saturated fats. And so like you said, getting these like 60, 90-second clips on social media can be really, really difficult to for the average person to actually understand the why of anything.
right.
And my understanding is that it's kind of twofold for these seed oils as to why they're so unhealthy for us. One, which you've already covered, is the actual manufacturing process
Hmm.
where, hexane is added. They're high heat process, so they're basically rancid and covering up that rancid taste and odor chemically. So those are things that are detrimental for our health on one side, but then the other side of that is the imbalance of omega 3s to omega 6s that it's causing in our body. And that's a hard thing to talk about as well because we don't want to necessarily demonize all omega 6s. They're important as well,
They are.
but it's the quality of the omega 6s that we're adding to our body and then the sheer volume.
Hmm.
Would you like to expand on that a little bit?
Yes, that's prong two of
Yeah.
why seed oils are so bad for us. They're in everything that's pre-made, just about, because they're cheap and they're easy to store, and manufacturers love them. And they add, the moistness, the juiciness to products. We need fat in there in some way. And so they're in just about everything you would buy that's packaged pre-made, from baked goods and snack foods and protein bars and even different candies, and on it goes. And how about the plant-based milk? Many of them, like oat milk and almond milk, have seed oils in them. Your pet food has seed oils in them. If you're getting a heated kibble, a baked kibble, most of it has seed oils in it. So it goes on and on. It's just in everything. And then, of course, fast food restaurants love to use seed oils for their high fat fryers. And restaurants love to use seed oils as well for cooking their food. So most people, morning to night, are eating seed oils and don't even know it. I call it the silent killer because unless you read a label, you don't even know it's in there. Well, what is that excess of omega 6 doing to us? It's also known as linoleic acid. Yes, we need it. Yes, it is important. Yes, it is an essential fat, but not in the proportion we're getting it. Most Americans have a very out of proportion ratio of about 20 to 1 omega 6 to omega 3. We should be no more than about 4 to 1 ratio. Even people have told me that are totally in the health space, they watch what they eat, they try hard to do the right things and have been tested because a lot of holistic medical centers now are testing omega 6, omega 3 ratios, and they've been shocked. They came out the same as average American, about 20 to 1. But the people I've talked to that were shocked about that did get it corrected and did get it back into range when they started being, more avid about reading labels. But what does that do? That out of balance range creates inflammation in itself, just getting too much omega 6, too much linoleic acid. The other side of the aisle that is bringing the other argument of yes, we need seed oils. They're important for the linoleic acid, omega 6. We must have them. It isn't true. We're getting too much. And would you get enough if you didn't have seed oils? Absolutely. They are in many foods, our whole grains, nuts and seeds, even avocados. So you would get plenty of omega 6 without any seed oils in your diet, just eating the seeds and nuts. Eat some sunflower seeds, eat some almonds, whatever. So that is a faulty argument, but it is their main argument on the other side of the aisle. And so we want to reduce those omega 6s in our diet and increase our omega 3s.
So, well, and you mentioned that 20 to 1 ratio. What's interesting is that a lot of pet foods, because there isn't a minimum or a maximum as far as AAFCO is concerned, like when um, companies are formulating pet foods, they don't have omega 3 and omega 6 ratios that they have to meet.
Mm.
But the general guideline that most people or most big companies follow is 40 to 1 for pets and pet food. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
So, our pet foods in the, like, healthy pet space, like, I've talked to Green Juju before, they aim for somewhere between that 4 to 1 to an 8 to 1 ratio depending on the recipe. So there are companies out there that are trying, that are aware, and that are saying, "No, we're doing a lot better." But generally speaking, most, like, kibbles on the market are gonna be closer to that, like, 40 to 1 ratio, which is astronomical.
Yes. And the poor little pets.
If that landed for you, here's the only thing I'll ever ask: hit follow. Not because the algorithm needs it, because your pet's nervous system doesn't care about the algorithm, but because every follow tells me there's a pack out there that's done outsourcing their dog's health to fear based vet visit small talk and wants the real root cause version instead.
But anyway, our poor little pets, they're inflamed and and that's leading to all sorts of problems for the pet. So it's so important to check and read labels. But I love the dehydrated pet foods and the raw pet foods that don't have the seed oils in them. That's a good thing to aim for.
Yeah. So going back, you mentioned in your book you have some um, ranges for like smoke points. And I know I'm not a cook by any means. Like I don't do well in the kitchen. In fact, anytime I'm in the kitchen is usually because I'm making something for my pets and not for me. But I do understand that different oils have different smoke points and that you'll use different oils depending on what you're cooking. Um, but things like smoke points and oxidation, when people are cooking with seed oils at home, and obviously we don't want them to be cooking with seed oils, but I think just to kind of round out the conversation, because I'm not sure that everyone is going to 100% remove seed oils from their diet as much as people like you and me absolutely want to.
Yes.
What are some kind of guidelines when we're thinking about the risk factors that go along with bringing any sort of oil up to a high heat temperature?
So it's oxidizing that oil, and that is creating a byproduct like aldehydes and lipid peroxides that create a lot of oxidative stress in the body, which leads to inflammation. So if your oil ever starts smoking, you've reached your smoke point. You should just toss it and start over. But knowing that avocado oil has a high smoke point, and if you're not vegan or vegetarian, you could also use beef tallow. It has a very high smoke point as well. But knowing those smoke points is important because we don't want to add to the oxidative burden in our body, which we all have some anyway, just eating different things that we don't realize we're eating. So it's very, very important to know that you don't want your oil smoking. But for people that want to make a switch over, it is so easy. Just toss out the old oil in your pantry and bring in a new good oil. And what are the good oils? We've kind of gone over them, but I didn't mention olive oil, and get always the extra virgin olive oil, which is the first press, the cold press, or avocado oil or coconut oil. Those are all excellent oils to cook with. And it's so easy to find them. Even the big box stores have them now in large quantities. And also clarified butter called ghee. That is another good one. And sesame oil is still on the good list, probably because people don't use very much of it. So it's not been the big industrial processing. They use it mostly in Asian type dishes. So a little bit of sesame oil is okay as well. And get expeller or cold pressed sesame oil. That's usually all you find though on the market. And those are your good ones. Macadamia nut oil and almond oil are also good. They're a little more expensive. So if you're watching your pennies, stick with olive oil, avocado oil, or coconut oil.
I do know that there are some, um, at least in the pet food industry, some of the, like, healthier pet foods that will use cold pressed, hexane free sunflower oil to meet the linoleic acid requirements in that, commercial pet food has. Generally speaking, I think you've mentioned, cold pressed, hexane free, preferably, stored in a glass, like a dark glass bottle. These kinds of things, we would be looking for. Do you have any other recommendations for people when they are looking for, like, shopping for oils?
Yes. So read labels, and anything that's labeled as vegetable oil or any of the oils I've named, like canola or soy or corn, safflower, sunflower, or grapeseed oil, avoid those. And of course, rice bran, cottonseed, you don't see those as much. Peanut oil sometimes. Just avoid those as much as you possibly can. Now, more manufacturers are getting on board with good oils, so you can find snack foods with olive oil like popcorn. I was at Costco the other day, and there are big bags of organic popcorn with sea salt and olive oil. And I thought, we're making a step in the right direction. And chips, I found organic, all sorts of organic chips with sea salt and either avocado oil or olive oil that they were cooked in. You can now find avocado oil mayonnaise. Check the label though, because some manufacturers are getting smart, adding a pinch of avocado oil and the rest of it seed oil. So look for things on the label that will either say vegetable oil or listed one of those particular oils that I've just named. If you're going to a health food store and you do see something, it's your favorite product, and it says just what you mentioned earlier, expeller press, sunflower oil, high linoleic, no hexane, that's the best of the seed oil category. If you're going to go there, that would be your best choice. And occasionally there is a health food store product that I want, and that's what's in it. And so I don't feel as bad about that. Knowing though, keep in mind that we are getting too much. Most of us are getting too much linoleic acid to start with. So adding more in kind of adds to that load of that maybe 20-to-1 or 15-to-1 ratio. But still, it's a real world we live in. And, you do the best you can and make the best choices you possibly can.
Yeah. What I'm curious, well, first, before I ask you this question, I just want to remind people because I recently published an interview with Tavis from Omega Quant. So you can test your omega-3 levels to see where you are at. You can also get your dog's levels tested. To see where they
Yeah.
are at, if that is of interest to you. Um, you can find those at Omega Quant. You can get the dog test kit at Wild Wellness Pet and take that to your veterinarian. It's a quick and easy blood test that you just mail in, and you can actually see where your levels are, where your pet's levels are, and adjust accordingly. So that can be helpful. But what I'm just curious because I know you have pets. What do you do for your pets to make sure that you're not giving them too much omega-6, that you're removing seed oils from their diet?
So I have little Winston. He's a little schnauzer, and his diet is pretty pure. So I feed him the raw meat. There I call them the little sliders that I thaw out for his dinner, and I add a supplement to that. He's been a little bit ADD, a little distracted, a little hyper. So I put a supplement on top of that has some herbs in it and some glandulars, different vegan products. There's no seed oil in that. And that has brought some calmness to him that we haven't seen before and a little more focus. I feed him 3 times a day. And so for breakfast and lunch, I give him dehydrated sliders. It's about the same thing, but it's dehydrated. And the only thing that's in there is the meat. And I switch that up from beef and turkey and chicken and duck. And then there's some vegetables in there that are ground up. And that's pretty much what he's getting. But I have a seed meal, ground up seeds, and that would give him some linoleic acid that I sprinkle over the top of his dehydrated dinners. And then I often give him some oil, some good oil, like a little olive oil or a little coconut oil. He loves that. He just laps it right up. So we're pretty much seed oil free when it comes to Winston.
That's awesome.
Oh, and I should add, he loves salad. Is this cool? No dressing, just plain lettuce. He has to have crunchy lettuce. He hates flabby lettuce.
Yeah.
So, and he
Yeah, it's
loves carrots.
yeah, and it's good enrichment, to get I know people that will, like, a head of lettuce is getting ready to go bad in the fridge, and they'll just, like, chop it in half and let their dog kind of play with it and chew on it and shred it all up, and it's a good enrichment for them for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Extra water, lettuce is full of water, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Um, you mentioned just kind of start by throwing away what's in your pantry. If you have seed oils in your pantry, just throw it away. I will
Yeah.
say my boyfriend, he bless his heart, is just so accepting of any and everything I do. I went in the kitchen one day and I said, "I'm just gonna clean up." And he was like, "Okay." And I threw away everything I found in that pantry, every bottle of vegetable, and he's a chef. So he loves his seed oils because that's what he was trained with, right?
Sure.
So I threw away every bottle of everything.
Good
And
for
I
you.
went and I brought in coconut oil and ghee and tallow, and he's like, this tastes really great." And I'm like, "I know it." And even though I did give a little bit because I don't like spray bottles because of the chemical they use for the sprayer, but I
Uh-huh.
was like, "Okay." He begged me to get a spray bottle back because he bought some, like, Pam or something, and I was like, "No way, I'm not eating
No.
food that you make with that." So I did, break down and I got him a spray bottle of avocado oil because I was like, "If you have to have your spray bottle, I'll give you that, but it needs to at least be."
Yes. Well, that was a step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, I was like, Bless his heart for putting up with me."
Well, you're
Um,
maybe saving his heart in the
oh,
long run.
for sure, for
Oh,
sure. He's
yeah.
being a chef, he was taught certain things, and just like he fought me to get rid of the plastic, chopping boards, and I'm like, "There is no way I'm going to eat food that you prepared on a plastic cutting board."
Yeah. Yeah.
But he was
I hear you.
taught that that's the most sanitary thing, and so, of course, I sent him information about how sanitary wood cutting boards are, and
Mhm.
yeah, so we have switched to wooden cutting boards and, yeah, and I've removed all of the seed oils from the pantry. But so you mentioned doing that, and I think for a lot of people, that's a lot. Like, the average US citizen, it it's going to feel very overwhelming to them. So I think, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, in your book, you have these recipes, you have the charts for smoke points so people can understand what healthy oils they can use in the situations they were previously using the seed oils, and that might make it a little less overwhelming. Do you think that's an accurate?
I do,
Yeah.
because people want to know what oils can I use for baking? What do I use for frying? If I'm doing a stir fry, if I'm sauteing onions, if I'm cooking eggs. All of those questions come up. So we answer that and give you oil choices based on their flavors because there are flavors for these good oils. There are different subtle flavors. And so you want to know probably what would be best in these different recipes and categories. So we've got all of that. And I really encourage people give it a try, make some food. That is where we've lost our way kind of as a society. We're used to now bags and boxes and ripping something open and popping it in the microwave and getting takeout and ordering a pizza or whatever. And people have lost the idea that they can assemble food and that it's not hard, it's easy, it can be fast, and it can be very, very healthy, very nutritious, and easy to do and delicious on top of it. And so we're trying to bring people back to that place of just thinking, deciding, oh, I can do this. I can make this. It won't take a long time. Cleanup won't be overwhelming. And my payoff is I'll feel better.
Yeah. And that is something that I have been trying to bring more into the podcast as well, is bringing people back to nature, and we are so disconnected from our food that I think it's a really good way to start bringing us closer to what kind of food we should be eating, where our food comes from, what goes into producing our food, to raising the animals, to growing the crops, to and the more we can understand that, the closer to source we feel. The like I think that not only we're going to improve our physical health, but we're going to improve our mental health as well when we get a better understanding of a connectedness with the food we eat. So
Oh,
that sounds
absolutely.
important. Yeah.
Yes, I would love to talk about brain health for a moment.
Please
Because
do.
yes, it's a big topic too. That's another big topic. Nobody wants to lose their mind, right? And nobody
Yeah.
wants to get dementia or Alzheimer's or just brain fog. That's a thing that a lot of people experience that are younger. But even very young people have mentioned that to me, experiencing brain fog. And nobody wants that. Everybody wants a clear, sharp mind. So, since, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, when we switched up our oils to the vegetable oils and also known as seed oils, we noticed an increase in Alzheimer's and dementia. It has been increasing year after year for decades. So, what has caused that? Not getting the right fats. Our brain is 60% fat. Of that fat, a large percentage of that is cholesterol. So, faulty fats in the diet are going to produce faulty cells. The outer membrane of cells is fat, saturated fat. And if we have the wrong fats, the faulty fats, what's the body going to do when it needs to replenish, replace? Going to choose a faulty fat because that's all it's got to choose from, right? And so that is going to impact the brain. But I want to bring up a couple of new studies this year, one by the Seventh day Adventists and one by Loma Linda University. And they found that the people that eat the most eggs, we were told not to eat eggs, right? Not to eat the yolks. And it was whole eggs that they studied with the yolks, not just the egg whites. It was the whole egg. The people that ate one egg 5 days a week or more had the least Alzheimer's, 27% reduction in Alzheimer's and dementia versus those that ate the least amount of eggs, which was, I believe, 1 to 3 eggs a month. And then they also looked at the people that ate no eggs at all that had Alzheimer's, and 32% of the people with Alzheimer's ate no eggs at all. Well, what is all of that about? Well, the yolks are very, very high in choline, which is a building block of acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is linked to short-term memory and learning. And then they're also rich. I just learned this. I didn't know they were rich in omega-3 fatty acids. Well, we need to up our omega-3s for our brain, for our heart, our whole body. Eggs are very rich in omega-3s, along with vitamin B12 and two of the carotenoids. Zeaxanthin is one of them that it's very rich in. And so when we tossed out the egg yolks, and that was pretty much in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, everybody was throwing out the egg yolks and choking down the egg whites. We were missing out on some very important nutrients for the brain. Eggs are good. Whole eggs are good, and they're really good for dogs. They say give it to your dog for the coat. Well, give it to your dog for the whole health, including their brain health as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I think one, you're going to find better nutrition and increased omega-3s in an egg from a chicken that is, regeneratively raised or pasture
Yes.
raised, that is eating species appropriate foods, that is actually foraging for foods, and their diet can be supplemented, but that is where you're gonna find the best nutrition and the highest levels of omega-3s.
Yes.
But no, you're absolutely right, and I think my understanding is the best way to feed an egg to a dog is, soft boiled, or like an over easy, but probably more soft boiled or poached.
Yeah.
So you're gonna keep you need to, um interestingly, and I think again it was Billy that told me this, when you cook the white, the protein increases, but if you cook the yolk, the nutrients decrease. So you wanna cook the white and leave the yolk as much intact and raw as possible. So, that's how I prefer to eat my eggs anyway.
Yes.
So I just feed them to my dog that way as well. But they're an amazing, they have so many nutrients in it. But the thing that I love the most about that study is that it was the whole egg, because
Yes.
again, another thing that I talk a lot about is feeding food the way nature intended.
Mhm.
Because of all of the co-nutrients that you're getting, we're in this like weird, like, science cult age where, somebody decides to study that, for example, you just said how beneficial an egg is. And so a pharmaceutical company, right, they can't patent that because it's created in nature. They can't patent, the leaf of of a nettle plant, or it's created in nature, they can't patent it. So they decide to study and find the compounds within that natural, whatever it is, plant or animal product, that they deem most beneficial, and then they synthetically create that isolate, and then they tell us this is the best thing for us. When I don't believe that's true at all. I think it's only beneficial for us because of all of the co-nutrients that come with it, the way nature intended us to eat it, which is why I love that you brought up that it's the whole egg that they studied.
Exactly. Well, I want to point out something when we started isolating the egg white and in that crazy period
Mhm,
that our nation has been through of get the cholesterol way down, get it below 300 milligrams, get the saturated fat out of your diet. So it was just a crazy era. And everything was egg white. So egg white omelets and frittatas and egg bites and on it went. Quiches with egg whites. Everything was egg whites. Well, and then people were doing the raw egg whites in their smoothies. You know what showed up? Egg white injury, it's called, because
mhm,
when you have undercooked egg whites, it binds biotin, and that
mhm,
creates physical problems. And it was actually named egg white injury. Very interesting. We have come full circle back to in 2015 they started publishing long term studies, meta analysis of population. Um, Large groups of people were studied, and they found that dietary cholesterol had almost nothing to do with blood cholesterol measurements. And so they published these studies in 2015 and tossed out the whole food cholesterol in food myth and all of those crazy years we'd been through saying, oh, you have to get all this cholesterol out of your diet or you're going to die of a heart attack. And it was all false. And so in 2015, they tossed out the 300 milligrams of cholesterol or less and said, forget that. And it was all wrong. And all these population studies proved it.
mhm.
So it's been a crazy time we've been through, but I've noticed old misinformation doesn't go away easily because it's still out there. Many restaurants still have proudly on their menu egg white omelets, egg white frittatas. You can go to big box stores. Even Costco has an egg white quiche. So old misinformation doesn't go away easily. But as we, the consumer, start using our wallets to vote, it's going to go away. Choose only whole eggs whenever you get something, make something. It's the whole egg you want. And don't
Mhm.
worry about that cholesterol in your food. It's been proven that's a myth, not a reality.
Yeah. Well, this has been an excellent conversation. Is there anything else that you would love to touch on? Um,
Yes. So for you and your pet, you'll never know how good you can feel until you start giving some of these things a try. Because so many people have said to me or thought it couldn't possibly be that if I change these things in my diet, these issues are going to clear up for me or they're going to clear up for my pet because doctors don't teach that. They're not taught that in school. But it's true. What we put in our bodies and our pets' bodies, that's the fuel that we run on. And if you put inferior fuel in your car, it's not going to run well. When we put inferior fuel in our bodies and our pets' bodies, not going to run well. And so when people start cleaning up their diet and their pet's diet, they notice, wow, I'm doing better. My pet is doing better. The whole household is doing better. And that's why I say you'll never know how good you can feel until you give this a try.
I think that is so true. And and I've seen that in so many cases, not I mean, with pets for sure, and even with myself, cleaning up my diet is
Yes.
it makes such a huge difference in your energy levels. You talked about brain fog, and the thing that is it gets really heavy on my heart is that we don't see these things often in our pets.
Yeah.
they can feel sluggish, they can feel brain fog, and we don't always know it, or we
Yeah.
think something else is wrong, or we try to take them to the vet and they're just prescribed a pharmaceutical, and that's not helping anything.
No, it's making them worse in the long run because it's just masking a symptom.
Yeah.
It's not getting to the root. The root of that symptom is organic. It's something that's going on for that pet that's organic, and we need to get to the root of it. I love holistic veterinarians, and I have a holistic vet, and her whole thing is diet, nutrients. Let's see, what we can give your little dog as far as a diet recommendation or a supplement. And we have the healthiest little guy. He's 5 years old and nothing wrong with him that we can see. He looks happy and energetic and full of life. And so it makes such a huge difference. But I do feel sorry for our pets. They can't tell you when their head hurts or something's going wrong, maybe unless it becomes very visible. But they can't tell you when it's more subtle things like, are they brain fogged in or
Totally.
low energy or aches and pains? So it's up to us to get it figured out for them and give them the very best chance they can have of living a healthy, happy life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sherry, I appreciate this conversation so much. I think it's so needed, especially I've talked so much about social media, but I think that's where most people are getting their information from these days. And it is, again, it's so hard because you can't get a whole thought out in 60 seconds. Like it just doesn't, you can't explain everything in 60 seconds.
Right.
And that's just it's hard. It's hard to figure out how to participate in that, but, it's definitely damaging, I think, the just how people walk around and what they think they know and
Yeah.
don't know, and, so I appreciate this conversation to kind of expand a little bit on seed oils, why we do wanna limit them or eliminate them if we can, and hopefully people check out your new book.
I hope so. Come to my website, juiceladyinfo.com. I'm also big into juicing. And you can get to my landing page, thetruthaboutseedoils.com. I have a bunch of freebies there. You can get the 21-day menu plan, download free. There's also a link for a free app trial, Seed Oil Scout, which will tell you what restaurants around you, little green bubbles all around where you live, that are seed oil free. And it will also have a scanner. You can just point that at any label and it'll tell you if there's seed oils in there and what other inferior products are in that packaged food. So you might want to avoid that food.
Yeah, I love that, and yeah, Seed Oil Scout is such a cool app, as if you live in an area where there are green dots around you. That's
Yes,
fun.
yes. Hopefully
That's
you have a
fun.
few.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Sherry. I appreciate you being here and sharing all of this information. Guys, please check out Sherry's website, her new book, and download her free guide. And yeah, with that, please give your pets some extra love from me and from Sherry this week. And I will talk to you next week. That was such an incredible conversation. I'm so glad that you are still here with me to end today's episode. I did mention that you can get the Omega Quant testing kit for omega-3 levels for your dog at Wild Wellness Pet, but what I failed to mention was that you can also get Cocoa Therapy coconut oil at wildwellnesspet.com as well. Coconut oil is one of my favorite things in the world. I use it for so many different things for myself and for my pets. And you can get Cocoa Therapy, which is my favorite coconut oil, at wildwellnesspet.com. I hope you check it out. I hope that you take yours and your pet's health as seriously as I do, because without our health, we have nothing else. And if you have any questions, as always, please feel free to send me a message, DM me on Instagram, or through the Pet Parenting Reset website. I would love to hear from you there. And yes, please do give your pets some extra love from me this week, and I will talk to you next week. Quick one. Everything in the Wild Wellness Pet Apothecary, I've handpicked myself. Not an affiliate dump, not Trust me, bro. Amazon links, herbs, remedies, and support I actually use with my own clients' dogs. If you're tired of guessing what's real and what's marketing in the pet wellness aisle, it's linked at wildwellnesspet.com. Go take a look. Quick favor before I let you go, hit follow. That's genuinely the only thing I'll ever ask you for. It's how this show grows enough to keep bringing you vets, herbalists, and holistic practitioners who've actually done the work instead of just parroting the pharma line.